Well, it's fair to say that if he was singing it today, Elvis Presley's tune Hound Dog might have a completely different meaning when it actually ties in with the joys and wonderments of canine nutrition. And we're delighted to actually welcome two fine folk today to actually share with us how actually maybe some of those preconceptions when it comes to the food that our furry canine friends like to eat may be way off base, certainly when it comes to omnivores, carnivores, and such like. The two folk in particular that will be able to shed light on this are indeed television vet extraordinaire, the extraordinarily talented Marc Abraham. How are you, Marc?
How are you doing? Nice to see you.
Excellent. And we also have veterinary professor of animal welfare. Of course, that's the wonderful Professor Andrew Knight. How are you, Andrew?
Good, Alex. How are you?
Excellent. Now, Andrew, if we can come to you first, just to actually share with us, let's put to bed straight away the notion that dogs are not carnivores. They do actually sort of they eat all sorts of things, but except, of course, chocolate, which they can't digest, but that's another issue entirely.
Dogs do indeed eat all sorts of things, and the diet of the modern domesticated dog bears little resemblance to that of the ancestral dog. They're biologically omnivorous. They've evolved with hunter-gatherer human beings to basically eat our scraps from our campfires, so they can eat starch and carbohydrate-rich root vegetables, scraps of meat, all sorts of things. What's important that we give them today in the diets that we provide is diets that are nutritionally complete and balanced for dogs and formulated to a good standard and delicious enough that they'll be happy to eat them.
Now, Marc, turning to, again, the other aspect of veterinary science and so on, and indeed Hound in general, were you surprised by this research, which obviously kind of also impacts in terms of how we can reduce the carbon footprints, paw prints of our dogs as well?
Well, Alex, I think you can call it food for thought. I think the research by Hound has shown that over half the British dog owners have never considered the impact their dog has on the environment, which I'm not really surprised at, because when we have pets, there's plenty of other things to distract us from rather than thinking about their impact on the environment. But the good news is 87% have admitted that they're keen to make small changes in order to help reduce that paw print, as we've discussed. And there's 6 major ways that all pet owners can do this. The products that we buy, so consider higher quality, longer lasting products rather than more disposable ones. Consider the packaging they come in. Obviously, go local if possible to reduce transport costs and impact on the environment. Consider upcycling, repairing, washing toys and treats. Toys and sort of bedding. Grooming products are becoming more and more plant-based and ethical. The waste. How sick are we of going for countryside walks and seeing plastic poo bags hanging in trees that people can't be bothered to throw away? So, consider compostable ones, or maybe constructing a wormery in your garden using dog waste. And also the staycations and pet-friendly holidays, which with international travel restricted are going to be, we assume, more prioritised this year. But the main one is to consider swapping food. And if you're sort of maybe a little bit skeptical, maybe try one day a week swapping your dog's food for a plant-based diet, or maybe go for it gradually and make 7 days a week plant-based. It's healthy. The formulated diets, for example, Hound's superfood new diet, hypoallergenic, they're low in fat. We have a huge obesity problem with pets in the UK as well. So it ticks so many boxes. And also, in a growing plant-based human population, I think a lot of people are finding it harder and harder to justify feeding a dead animal to their pet animal, especially as we're all kind of animal lovers. So this provides a really good alternative, a healthy option that we can all give it a go and see if our dogs like and obviously do well on it. And to be honest with you, I mean, I live in Brighton. We have quite an alternative population down here, and I've seen probably a higher proportion of plant-based dogs in my veterinary career, and they all thrive. And also I've done lots of international work in places like India and Thailand, where they're often just fed plant-based diets, and they do marvelously. So really there's no reason why people shouldn't try it and give it a go.
Andrew, Marc raised a very important point there in terms of pet obesity, which is a growing problem, no pun intended. But in terms of that, is this one way in which we can start addressing that? Because usually you find if you're on a more plant-based diet, etc., maybe actually you're less likely to sort of be padding out, or again, share with us what's the kind of line on this one?
I mean, you're absolutely right. I was a dog and cat veterinarian for 8 years until about 8 years ago when I became an academic. But we were seeing in practice dogs and cats coming in increasingly overweight and obese and suffering shortened lifespans, mobility problems, discomfort when they're walking, increased anaesthetic risk, and so on. Look, I've just finished the first really large-scale study of the health of dogs on different diets. It's research that I've been doing in this last year. We looked at 2,500 dogs on different diets, and we found that the ones on the vegan diets were generally just as healthy and indeed healthier in some respects than the meat-based dogs. And one of the several benefits was they had lower rates of obesity and the related problems such as lameness and so on. This can potentially affect longevity, how long the animals actually live for as well. So yes, the evidence from the large-scale population study that I've done, and there's another research group in North America also putting out a very similar one very shortly, who I understand have similar results. The evidence shows that they're less likely to suffer from being overweight and obese than dogs on sort of the more old-fashioned meat-based diets, which are particularly high in calories.
Presumably also shifting to staycations means that there's less likelihood of stress because of dogs being separated from their owners and put into some holiday camp that they probably don't like in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, sorry, Mike, please.
I was going to say absolutely, because, and especially after this sort of pandemic last year, because the separation anxiety potential of animals, dogs and cats, but obviously in this instance we're talking dogs, to be with their owners 24/7 and then all of a sudden to be separated either in a kennels or when owners indeed go back to work. This is a real welfare issue that we're looking at very carefully. And if anyone suspects that their pet may be prone to this, then please seek out a qualified behaviourist to start making changes to prepare that animal for what happens next, because the last thing we need is a spike in abandonment of separation anxiety cases into rescue, which are traditionally hard not only to rehome but also to rehabilitate as well.
Yeah, very, very much so. Mark, do you by any chance know what HOWND stands for? Is it just HOWND? Because it's not obviously HOUND, the actual HOWND thing. And I was thinking, is there an acronym there? It's like heaven on wheels for something or some sort of system there. Or is it just a case of just go for HOWND?
It's a lovely thought, but as far as I'm aware, it's just an alternative way of saying hound. So the website is dogslovehound.com with a W. So that's dogslovehound.com, and all the information of the diet and the ingredients and all the great stuff that it brings to our lives and our dogs' lives is on there for you to enjoy and to share with others. So yeah, it's a really exciting time for dog food right now.
Which I suppose some might say we've waited for that for quite some time, really, which is excellent. For the moment, Professor Andrew Knight, veterinary professor of animal welfare, and of course the awesomely talented, as we said, Marc Abraham. He knows everything in terms of TV vet stuff, etc. Huge thanks. Keep on keeping on and stay happy.
Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you very much.
Cheers.
Well, it's fair to say that if he was...